Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 30th chapter, the activities of the Prachetas, and today we're on text number 47. Hope that's right. Translation of Prabhupada by Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The remaining trees, being very much afraid of the Prachetas, immediately delivered their daughter at the advice of Lord Brahma. Please repeat. The remaining trees, being very much afraid of the Prachetas, immediately delivered their daughter at the advice of Lord Brahma. The daughter of the trees is referred to in text 13 of this chapter. This daughter was born of Kandu and Pramlocha. The society girl Pramlocha, after giving birth to the child, immediately left for the heavenly kingdom. While the child was crying, the king of the moon took compassion upon her and saved her by putting his finger in her mouth. The child was cared for by the trees, and when she grew up, by the order of Lord Brahma, she was delivered to the Prachetas as their wife. The name of the girl was Marisha, as the next verse will explain. It was the predominating deity of the trees that delivered the daughter. In this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada states, Vriksha Tad Adishta Devata. The trees means the controlling deity of those trees. In the Vedic literatures, we find that there is a controlling deity of the water. Similarly, there is a controlling deity of the trees. The Prachetas were engaged in burning all the trees to ashes, and they considered the trees their enemies. To pacify the Prachetas, the predominating deity of the trees, under the advice of Lord Brahma, delivered the daughter Marisha. Om Gyanatmananda Shravananjana Shanataya Chakshumritam Janatasma Shri Namo Vishnuvidaya Krishna Vishnaya Bhaktane Srimate Govinda Swami Namane. Namo Vishnuvidaya Krishna Vishnaya Bhaktane Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Pasitananda Shitane. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Shri Bhaktivedanta. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Tatra Vashishtaye Vriksha Bita Duritaram Tara Uchharuste Pachetobhya Upadishta Swayambhuva. Translation again. The remaining trees, being very much afraid of the Prachetas, immediately they delivered their daughter at the advice of Lord Brahma. It's interesting because the Prachetas, they wanted to perform sacrifice and austerity in a mood of pure devotion to please the Lord, and also to prepare themselves to take responsibility for the kingdom after their father, Prachinivadisha. And therefore they went with that intention to perform these austerities for, I think it was 10,000 years. And because the Lord, the Paramatma, Chaitanya is within the heart of his devotees, he could understand what their true intention was, that they wanted to please him, wanted to serve him in a loving way, in a mood of devotion. And because Krishna, he knows everything, past, present, and future, he made arrangement for the Prachetas to come in contact with their spiritual master, who was Lord Shiva. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Lord Shiva, most people, especially in India, they worship Lord Shiva because they want some materialistic boon or benefit. But Lord Shiva is also Premi Bhakta. He also has pure love for the Lord. And we can also go, and there's examples of Vaishnavas who go to Lord Shiva for that intention of how to get Krishna or how to develop love for Krishna. And so therefore, Lord Shiva, he can give his kripa, his ultimate kripa or mercy, and that is prema bhakti, love for Krishna. And it's said that when he gives other boon, materialistic boon, this is not really his kripa, this is not really his mercy or his ultimate mercy. And therefore that is compared to, or it's explained as a vanshana, which means some type of cheating. So if you want to get cheated, you want something material, and you go to Lord Shiva, he's Ashutosh, he can certainly fulfill your materialistic desires, but this is not his ultimate mercy. So by the arrangement of the Lord, the Prachetas came in contact with Lord Shiva, accepted him as their spiritual master. Lord Shiva engaged them in worshipping Vishnu and gave the song sung by Lord Shiva, which is about the pure devotional service. And so the Prachetas followed the instructions of their spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that they took, as his disciples, they took his words so seriously that simply by meditating upon those instructions given by Lord Shiva, they became perfect. And that this is the secret of success in devotional life. Prabhupada continues that the order of the spiritual master is the life substance of the disciple. And in many places, Srila Prabhupada talks about in his books that what is the secret of success in spiritual life, and that is to make the instructions of bona fide spiritual master your life and your soul. To get the mercy from the spiritual master means to get the mercy from Krishna. Yasha prasada bhagava prasada yasha prasada nagati putopi. So they were able to please Lord Shiva, who was their spiritual master, and therefore they were able to please the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada explains that simply by offering these prayers that were given to them by Lord Shiva to Vishnu, the Prachetas were transferred to the spiritual world. But Prabhupada says also, sometimes devotees desire to enjoy material happiness also. And therefore, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the devotee is given a chance to enjoy the material world before his final entrance into the spiritual world. So Krishna was so pleased with the Prachetas because they satisfied and pleased Lord Shiva, offered those prayers to the Lord in a mood of loving devotion. And then Krishna, or the Supreme Lord, said that those who offer me the prayers that were composed by Lord Shiva, both in the morning and the evening, will be given benedictions by me. In this way, they can both fulfill their desires, which is called Kama Varan, and attain good intelligence or transcendental intelligence. So by offering that prayer, then the Lord is offering that benediction that you may also be able to fulfill your desires, of course in a Krishna conscious way, and ultimately at the end, to attain good intelligence or pure intelligence, which means transcendental intelligence. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that good intelligence means going back home, back to Godhead. This is the perfect intelligence. So why this is important is because the Prachetas, after satisfying Lord Shiva, and after satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, they came out of that water, and immediately it appears that they're in material consciousness because they're becoming angry, and then they're burning down all of the trees. Even Prabhupada, it says there that in the purport that they considered the trees to be the enemy. So this is not the quality or the symptom of one who is in pure consciousness. That means that somehow his contact with that material energy apparently put him in some type of contaminated or material consciousness, so much so that Lord Brahma had to come and try to pacify him. And this is very similar with Dhruva Maharaj. He also had a darshan of the Supreme Lord. The Lord here with the Prachetas also came and gave his darshan directly face to face. And also in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, after satisfying his spiritual master, getting mercy of Guru and Krishna, Prabhupada says two mercies are required, mercy of Krishna and mercy of spiritual master. By the mercy of Krishna one gets bona fide Guru, by the mercy of bona fide Guru one gets Krishna. So two mercies are required. So, but then they got mercy, but then how is it that apparently they fall into some type of material contamination or material consciousness? As in the case with Dhruva Maharaj, after he had got the personal darshan of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada explains to get personal darshan of the Lord is not some simple thing. This is Vasudeva platform or Shuddha Sattva platform. Krishna says in Gita that only by pure devotional service will I reveal myself to you. So obviously they were pure devotees. They were able to understand or see on transcendental platform or Vasudeva platform, which is Shuddha Sattva platform. And of course that comes by the mercy of Krishna, mercy of the spiritual master. And yet, having the association of Lord Shiva, pleasing Lord Shiva, so much so that they got a benediction and the personal darshan of the Lord, even after that association with Lord Shiva and with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, still apparently it looks like they're in a material consciousness, contaminated consciousness, that they're exhibiting this type of anger, so much so that they have to be stopped. Almost it appears that they are out of control of their mind and their senses. So this may be a little perplexing, that how can someone be a pure devotee, get the personal darshan of the Lord, have Lord Shiva directly as their spiritual master, please him, and then still apparently being contaminated by contact with this material world. The same case happened with Dhruva Maharaj, because after he got the benediction from the Lord that yes, you'll also enjoy, you'll also stay here for 36,000 years. And then at the end, then you'll come back to the spiritual world. In fact, I'll give you your own transcendental planet, where even the sun and the moon and everything will revolve around it. But then, as he took up the responsibility in the material world, as a Kshatriya, he's coming in contact with that material energy, and then he started to kill the yakshas who had killed his brother. What's the brother's name? Uttama? So then I think Manu, he had to go and try to pacify Dhruva Maharaj, that he's seeing these people are your enemies. He's seeing they're my enemies, they killed my brother, that he's exhibiting so much anger, so much killing all of these personalities. So that also looks like he's just in a covered consciousness. He's considering friends and enemies, and then he's engaged in this killing business. So that is also a little bit perplexing. There's Dhruva Maharaj, whose destiny is to have his own Vaikuntha planet. He got the personal darshan of the Lord, got full mercy and blessings of his grandfather, Prahlad Maharaj, and still he became apparently contaminated or covered by the material energy as a result of his performing that kingly duty in contact with the material energy. So Srila Prabhupada speaks in that regard that apparently it looks like they're angry, just as the Prachetas look like they're angry. They look like they are not controlling their mind and senses. They're considering friends and enemies, which are considered to be a material conception. Prabhupada talks about that it is just on the platform of your mind. This idea of friends and enemies, it's an illusion, a dream. It has no basis in spiritual reality. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Dhruva Maharaj was a liberated soul, and actually he was not angry with anyone. But because he was the ruler, it was his duty to become angry for some time in order to keep law and order in the state. So apparently it looks like materialistic anger. That's why it's a little bewildering that how can they get all of that benediction and association and ultimately going back home, back to Godhead, and at the same time exhibiting this type of anger. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Dhruva Maharaj was actually a liberated soul, but because he was asked by Guru and Krishna to perform that function as a Kshatriya, as a ruler, personally, spiritually, he was not angry, but in that position, he had to show that type of anger in order to keep the law and the order in the state. So the Prachetas also, when they came out of that water, although they had previous contact and association, they apparently also became angry because the trees became so overgrown that everything else was being disturbed. And it is the responsibility of that ruler or that king to make sure that everything is peacefully going on in the kingdom for the pleasure of the Lord. So that show of anger was not materialistic or due to material contamination, but that it was part of the responsibility of taking that function or that role. That role and that function, that instruction came from his father, who was also like spiritual master. And when Krishna came, when the Lord gave personal darshan, he also gave benediction that you'll get married, that you'll marry this girl, Manisha, that you'll follow the orders of your father and produce progeny, and that you'll rule as Kshatriya within the world. So these instructions, and Prabhupada explains in the previous purport, that those instructions ultimately came from Krishna. That Krishna wanted, the spiritual master wanted, and they just simply wanted to execute and please the Lord according to his will and desire. But the Lord, just like with Dhruva Maharaj, pacified them, that don't be worried, that although you're taking that responsibility, you'll live very peacefully, you'll be able to nicely enjoy, even in this material circumstance. Now when we read that, materialistic-minded persons, we think, well, he's just saying just to enjoy materialistic life and then you go back to Godhead? Well, that sounds pretty good. That's a nice benediction. But then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, if you're not free from your sins, sinful desires and sinful reactions, you can't go back to Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada explains what is that enjoyment is not the enjoyment that we may think by overly indulging in material sense gratification and engaging in all types of illicit activities. It was that they performed sacrifice, they were engaged in religious activity, they were engaging everyone else in that religious activity, and therefore all the demigods were pleased. So there was no disturbance there. So they could live peacefully, they could enjoy there because they kept a Krishna conscious environment. And sometimes using this anger or ruling in a strong way, that is also required to keep the peace. But also, sometimes, because of that contact with the material energy, sometimes we may be a little bit affected by that. So Dhruva Maharaj, as well as he was killing the Yakshas, then Prabhupada explains in the purport, in order that Dhruva Maharaj's kingly anger not exceed its limits, then Manu was kind enough to check his grandson. That is also the mercy of Krishna. He's also sending Guru. He's also saying, okay, you use it, but don't get carried away. Use it in the service of Krishna, in the service of Guru and Krishna, that is fine, that is transcendental. But if it appears that it's getting a little bit carried away, then Krishna, he can understand, and therefore he makes arrangement, he sends association of his dear devotees who give some nice, logical, purifying instruction to bring that person back to the spiritual senses so that they'll keep everything in the proper perspective. And that is also the protection and the mercy of the Supreme Lord, because then one is not jeopardizing or risking the ultimate benediction, which is to go back home, back to Godhead. So here in today's verse, Lord Brahma also could understand the Prachetas showing this kingly anger. We're creating a fearful situation, especially amongst the trees who were getting burnt. And therefore he came to pacify that situation, to pacify the Prachetas, in the same way that Manu came to check, Prabhupada says, to make sure that their anger did not exceed the proper unnecessary limit. So Manu was kind enough to check his grandson. And Lord Brahma was also kind enough to check the Prachetas and to make sure that everything ran nicely and did not exceed its limits. Then it would be uncontrolled mind and senses. So something in the service of Guru Krishna, that is also required. Dhruva Maharaj could understand the purpose of his grandfather, and therefore he immediately stopped fighting. So that is also showing that one's intelligence is guided by Krishna, and that Krishna is speaking internally as a Chaitya Guru Paramatma, as well as externally in the form of a spiritual master. So because he was sincere devotee, then Krishna, he was able to help both Dhruva Maharaj and the Prachetas by sending like spiritual master, so that they could be checked and everything would be kept in a reasonable way. So therefore Dhruva Maharaj, as well as the Prachetas, after being pacified and explained by Lord Brahma, by Manu, then they immediately stopped the fighting. You see, when we exhibit the material anger, someone comes and says, Prabhuji, Maharaj, maybe you should just not be so angry. This is not really a nice quality. Krishna says it's the maniac quality. And the person's quoting you from the Shastra, quoting you from the Gita, this is not a nice quality. Krishna is not liking, not appreciating. But our anger, we cannot hear anything. Jayadvaita Maharaj the other day talked about that materialistic anger, which exceeds its limit, bewilders one's intelligence. And therefore they're not able to hear good instruction from Krishna and from Krishna's devotee, the bona fide Guru or other Vaishnavas who Krishna may use to try to check us and to purify us. So immediately they got purified, you could say, came to their senses, immediately understood this is Guru and Krishna's arrangement that I should stop, and immediately they stopped. That is the difference between using anger in the service of the Lord and not exceeding the limit. So, because Krishna had a desire to engage his devotee in devotional service, in this way acting as Kshatriya and ruling the kingdom, he was Vaishnava, he was pure Vaishnava. But Prabhupada said that perhaps he also had some materialistic desire as well as having a sincere, pure desire. And so Krishna, he'll do it in such a way that he'll pacify us, give some concession, gradually get purified, learn the lessons. I think Krishna says, quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if somebody is desiring materialistically, but at the same time they want to surrender and render loving service to me, then why will I be such a fool to give them some material opulence whereby they'll forget me? You see, these devotees, they had to stay, they had to engage in the materialistic affairs, but they got the protection and the mercy of their spiritual master and the mercy of Krishna, whereby they never forgot. And Prabhupada explains, for a materialistic person, Krishna won't give you all the time the fulfillment of your material desire or your material opulence, because then you'll become bewildered and then you'll forget what is your prime duty, what is the ultimate duty. But in the case of Juga Maharaj or the Prachetas, because they're pure devotees, they're empowered by and receiving full mercy of Guru and Krishna, they could not be bewildered by their materialistic activities, so-called materialistic activities, because they saw those activities as direct instructions from Krishna and the spiritual master, and they were trusting and engaging in those activities for their pleasure as a form of devotional service. So therefore they were not in anxiety or disturbed by contact with the material energy or by the opulence which was afforded to them, because they were under spiritual protection. They were under the special mercy of the Lord. Therefore, Prabhupada says such devotees, they can receive all material opulence because Krishna knows they'll not misuse it or abuse it and become bewildered. So Krishna says, why should I give them the fool's materialistic enjoyment and materialistic opulence if it just will make them to forget about me? They wanted to surrender and serve me with loving devotion, but if I give them these materialistic things, they'll forget. So Krishna says in that Chaitanya Charitamrita, I don't know the exact verse number, but he says that, okay, I'll give you something, but I'll give you in such a way that you'll never ask for that again. By the end, you'll be like, okay. You see? So that is also Krishna's mercy. He's managing everything very, very nicely. So Krishna understood what the function of the Prachetas were. He said, okay, you get married, you'll have a nice son, he won't even be inferior to Lord Brahma, you create the progeny. It's interesting because the Lord is asking the Prachetas, because you pleased me and you pleased Lord Shiva, you ask me whatever you want, I'll give you. Whatever benediction you want. So before they even could say what they wanted, then the Lord automatically started giving these instructions. And even the Prachetas admitted after those benedictions that the Lord knows my heart. Ultimately, you don't even have to ask because Krishna knows your heart. So even without being asked, automatically Krishna says, okay, you get married, you have children, you do progeny, you just somehow, you act as Kshatriya, you engage, enjoy the material world. Don't be in anxiety, don't be worried, because ultimate benediction is upon you, that not only will you have all of this material activity and desire fulfilled, but at the end you will get that transcendental intelligence by which Prabhupada says, you'll understand that, yes, let me go back home, back to Godhead. Then, Krishna said, then after you engage in all those activities, you will develop unalloyed, unadulterated devotional service unto me. That means there was some mixed bhakti. And the Lord knows the heart. He made an arrangement. He said, okay, you pleased me, you pleased Lord Shiva, okay, I'll let you go through that experience. You'll get your nice realizations. That whole thing will be exhausted. Then at the end, I'll make arrangement, just like Mahaprabhu said to Raghunath Das Goswami. Don't keep running away like a foolish person, right? You just stay in your household life and you practice your renunciation. And in the due course of time, the Lord will make an arrangement and He'll free you, He'll pull you out of that situation. So at some point, the Prachetas, after following the instructions of their father, the spiritual master, and ultimately the Lord Himself, became, Prabhupada says, maybe fed up, frustrated, exhausted, disappointed. Of course, that's for us. These devotees, they lived peacefully. They were Krishna conscious during that experience, and at the end they went back to the spiritual world. But for us, Srila Prabhupada says that your material experience, that type of experience where Krishna says, I'll give you, but I'll give you in such a way that you will never ask for it again. So what is that benediction? That is the type of benediction that when you're done with your so-called material enjoyment, the Prophet says you're completely exhausted, frustrated, disappointed, fed up to here, and ultimately Prophet says you'll be disgusted by the whole experience of trying to enjoy your senses separate from the service of Guru and Krishna. And Prabhupada says this is a very nice impetus for spiritual life. Then you will cry from your heart, never again, never again, never again. Then we'll become very, very much more serious about our spiritual life. So the Lord pacified those Prachetas, and he said, after that, don't be worried, don't be in anxiety, I'm with you. You have full mercy of your spiritual master. You have full mercy of Lord Shiva. You have my full mercy. You just follow my instruction. Don't doubt it. Don't be worried. Don't be in anxiety. And ultimately, at the end, if you go on pleasing Guru and Krishna, then you're, going back to Godhead. Developing pure bhakti and going back to Godhead is assured, is a guarantee. The Lord says to the Prachetas, you will develop pure devotional service, then you'll be free from all your material contamination. And at that time, being completely unattached to material enjoyment in the so-called heavenly planets, as well as the hellish planets, you will return home back to Godhead. This was the ultimate benediction. And the Lord said, I'll fulfill your material desire, and then I'll also give you transcendental intelligence. Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Krishna says, I'll give you the intelligence. So after some time, they became detached, they became understood, they had finished their duty, Krishna made an arrangement, and then the Prachetas, they left the home, they went, they did sadhu sangha, they purified themselves further, they became situated on liberated platform, pure platform, and then in that pure consciousness, the Lord then sent the association of Narada Muni, the Premi Bhakta. And by his association, by his instruction, they were able to perfect their spiritual life and ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. When they met Narada Muni, where is it? And of course, the Prachetas were asked by the Lord, what do you want? After he told them what you should have for your service, he then said, what do you want? What is, you asked me. And they just said, you please just always give me sadhu sangha, where I can always hear Hari Katha, Krishna Katha, always keep my heart, mind, consciousness purified. We pray to the spiritual master, my only desire is to purify my consciousness. How? By hearing Hari Katha, Krishna Nam, emanating from your lotus mouth. So they understood this point, they're pure devotees, they're Vaishnavas, they asked for that benediction. And you see in their life and in their experience, the Lord always gave them, because of their sincerity and seriousness, always gave them sadhu, sangha, gave them different spiritual masters, Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, however you want to say. And all of those spiritual masters, it said plurally, were able to purify and help and protect and ultimately deliver that soul back to Godhead. It says in later chapter 431.4 that as soon as the Prachetas saw the great sage Narada, that he had appeared, they immediately got up even from their asanas. As required, they offered their obeisances to Narada Muni, and they worshipped him. And when they saw that Narada Muni was properly seated, then they began to ask him questions. And they said, "Oh my master, may we inform you that because being overly attached to family affairs, we almost forgot the instructions we received from Lord Shiva and Lord Vishnu." So they were explaining what was their experience by the contact in the material world, that they had become somehow affected by that association and duty, and therefore they're saying that we almost, again, protection of the Supreme Lord, almost forgot what were those instructions that we had heard from our spiritual master and Lord Vishnu. Dear Master, kindly enlighten us in transcendental knowledge, which may act as a torchlight, by which we may cross the dark nescience of material existence. So Krishna said, when they asked for the benediction, because you pleased me, I'll fulfill whatever desire. Whatever you ask of me is automatically fulfilled. So their only prayer was, please, no matter what body I may be in, no matter which planet I may be on, please always give me the association of Sadhu, Guru, Vaishnavas, whereby I can always hear this Krishna Katha, Hari Katha, and keep myself in right consciousness so that we don't lose sight of what is our ultimate goal, is to go home back to God. So it's getting a little bit late. I think I should stop there. If there's any questions or points, please feel free. Cool. There's no one to pass it to.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I just mentioned that it's also said that when Lord Krishna takes away the wealth of a pure devotee,
he does what?
Takes away the wealth, richness.
Takes away?
Takes away. When he wants him to be a pure devotee. And this happened, as I read in the case of Prabhupada also, where all his wealth was taken away and for him to be a pure devotee. At the same time, it is said that Lord, when he is convinced that in spite of the wealth, that the devotee will not deter from the devotional service or will go away as a pure devotee, he allows him to keep his wealth. Is there not a contradiction here?
Well, Srila Prabhupada, he said that I would have been a business magnate. I would have been multi-millionaire, millionaire, with Prabhupada's intelligence and his personality and his experience and knowledge and Shakti. From a material standard, he would have been, very, very materially successful. And so this is some type of lila, where for the point or purpose of preaching Mahaprabhu's message. And another purport, Srila Prabhupada says sometimes, and this is not necessarily Srila Prabhupada, because our faith is that Srila Prabhupada is Nitya Siddha, that his dear intimate associate is Srimati Radharani and Krishna. And they descend here, just like Krishna descends, his pure devotee Nitya Siddha also descends here. So they're never contaminated by material energy, and they never forget about Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says this is the symptom of one who really is Nitya Siddha. So my faith and my realization is that Srila Prabhupada is such a personality. So it's difficult, you cannot compare that personality with the materialistic persons of this world. So it's not exactly a fair kind of example. That being said, Srila Prabhupada explains in one purport that sometimes his devotee, his pure devotee, he has ability to preach. He's very enthusiastic for preaching. And he has some quality, some ability to do so. But sometimes he may be in a family situation, or he may be apparently engaged in some type of business or materialistic activity. But if Mahaprabhu wants you, if Krishna wants you, then his special mercy is that he'll just take away anything that's distracting you from what is your ultimate purpose and reason for coming to this world. And so Srila Prabhupada saw that as special mercy from Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu's devotees, but they're also teaching in all the prayers and the examples of the Mahajanas, the previous acharyas. They're speaking and preaching and praying and teaching us. They're speaking about our position and how to act, how to behave, how to pray. So unless they take that position, how will we learn? So it's not an exactly fair comparison. We should not think, well, Prabhupada was contaminated, he was materially attached. He may act and say like that for some lila or to take our position, but we should never think for one moment that this divine personality of Srila Prabhupada is anything but an eternal associate of Srimati Radharani and Krishna and Nityasiddha, Mahabhagavata, Prem Bhakta, Agora Priyajana, very dear devotee of Mahaprabhu. So we have to be very careful not to misunderstand the lila or the pastime or activities of such great personalities, otherwise we may make a mistake, we may minimize their position, and therefore it directly or indirectly will commit some type of mistake or aparad. So we have to be very careful not to try to make it all things equal, because all things are not equal. This is a very special, most special dear devotee who did what even Mahaprabhu and six Goswamis didn't do. So this is not someone who just got purified from his material contamination, somehow escaped family life, purified himself, and then started studying the Shastra to figure out what to say. That's not Srila Prabhupada. So that's the first thing, most important thing that we should understand. Without understanding that, then how we can take Prabhupada's words and instructions as our life and soul? We'll just think, oh, it's just another man's opinion, an intelligent man's opinion. No. These instructions are coming directly from Krishna. That's why we say bona fide spiritual master is pure by your medium of Krishna. Prabhupada says real bona fide guru is external manifestation of the super soul, directly manifesting and speaking before us. So this is very important, otherwise we'll not be able to hear spiritually or transcendentally from an absolute platform if we have this type of material misunderstanding or misconception. So we have to just be very, not just a little, we should be very, very careful.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Two examples we discussed with Guru Maharaj and Prachetas. And they had Narad Muni as spiritual master, Lord Shiva as spiritual master. They had face-to-face meeting with the Lord. Still, they became very angry, and angry at people who were not envious of Krishna, or they had not offended devotees, yet they were very angry with these folks. So,
Prabhu, can I just interrupt you? We'll go further. But if personalities in the kingdom or even the trees, they're also persons.
Persons, yes.
If they're not acting according to what they're supposed to do under rules and regulations in the universal affairs and Krishna consciousness, that you can make an argument that that is a type of ignorance based on enviousness.
Of Krishna?
Of course. Why any soul is placed in any body in this material world is basically the fundamental reason Srila Prabhupada explained is because of enviousness. So someone might be in the body of a tree, that's a very sinful body, sinful reaction. So if you understand a material body means an entrance into the prison house, then that automatically means they're envious. And then if they're not guided and controlled by Krishna and Krishna's devotees within the function of that society, then that is also another act of enviousness or insubordination. And so therefore they clearly, and you could say maybe it's out of ignorance, but whatever the case may be, they're not acting properly, and therefore they deserve some type of chastisement or punishment or show of control or anger exhibited by Kshatriya rulers, which are not ordinary, like these materialistic politicians. They're all selfish people. They're all most envious people, right? But they, what is it called where the king is also a saintly person? Rajarshi. Right? So that means saintly, devotee, ruler, king. Vaishnava. Prabhupada said clearly, they're Vaishnavas. So when a Vaishnava exhibits some type of anger or control, it's meant to rectify and to purify our ignorance, whereby out of our enviousness, which is the root of it, we are not acting properly according to the will and the arrangement of the Supreme Lord and His devotees. So that anger is meant to purify them and rectify them and wake up their consciousness. And that's actually a show, Prabhupada says, a show of their mercy. When we become angry, we just become disturbed, and then we show our anger not in a mood of mercy. And then those persons also become angry. Prabhupada says that's the difference between spiritual anger and material anger, is the material anger means no mercy. No mercy means no benefit. So if you see it's delivered in a materialistic way, there's no mercy, there's no benefit, so everyone will just become resentful and disturbed. But if it's delivered spiritually by Krishna's devotee, and we see how it purifies us, rectifies us, wakes us up, and reinvigorates us to once again dedicate ourselves to following the instructions properly, then we see, oh, at first it was a little painful, because false ego is there. But because we accept it nicely, that this person is my well-wisher, this person is spiritually situated, is just trying to help me, then we can get the benefit of the show of that anger. So Srila Prabhupada says that anger by Sadhu, Guru, Vaishnava, by Krishna, is meant ultimately as a show of mercy to give us this benediction as a well-wisher. That's the difference.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think my confusion is that if it was really just a mercy, why was it in Iskcon or not Brahma or Mandir? And my question originally was going to be, if these pure devotees are getting angry, then what hope do we neophytes have? And what lessons can we learn from that? That's basically what I was saying.
What was the last part?
What lessons can we as neophytes learn?
What we should learn that I'm such a rascal, and I'm so stupid, and I'm not listening, and I'm not acting properly, and this person's taking a risk to approach this fool to think that maybe we can become purified and rectified for our own benefit. But doesn't Chanika Pandit, he say, don't try to instruct someone who's a fool, because they'll just commit offense and aparad, because they'll misunderstand that show of mercy in the form of anger. So that's why it's a risk for the spiritual master, for Vaishnava, to show some being not happy or disturbed, to try to wake us up, to try to benefit us. You see, and it's necessary for the Prachetas, for Dhruva Maharaj, for these Rajarshis to show anger. You see, as part of the function of managing this material world with persons who are not completely surrendered and completely pure, they need to be controlled. So sometimes anger can be used also in that way in the service of the Lord. But the idea was don't get carried away, don't exceed the limit. So because the trees were in anxiety, because the demigods were in anxiety about the killing of these yakshas, like in Kuvera and other demigods, they were disturbed. So then, superior authorities, they also come, they're ultimately responsible, and they just want to make sure, okay, he's in a nice, you're not going to get carried away, everything is going in the right way, it's being used in a proper way, but don't exceed the limit. Don't turn that spiritual service of anger, which is ultimately mercy, into something that is materialistic. Because then everyone will be disturbed, you'll be disturbed, and no one will be benefited. So just some subtle distinction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone, appreciate it. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Gurudeva ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki.